And so, Steve, can you give us a little bit of background? I've started the recording, and give us a little bit of your background, and then I'll have Paul say what he needs to say, and then we'll move forward.
Okay, well, I'm an old timer. I've spent most of my life in corporate America doing research, and I was in the space industry and the medical industry in a lot of the research that was performed. I joined Rotary in 2001, and by the way, by invitation. And one of the best things that I ever did. It was a real diversion from the rest of the world, because at that time, it really wasn't noted as being a networking organization. And they were pushing building relationships and working in the community and international projects and those types of things. Nothing to do with business, which is what I really needed. I was district governor for District 6380, 2011 and 12. And about, I guess it was around 2002 or 3, I started getting involved with the youth, because I had transported the youth in order to catch buses to go to events and that type of thing. And I noted their demeanor when I dropped them off. And then I compared the demeanor when I picked them back up. And it was amazing that no matter how long a period of time it was, only hours or just a couple days, these kids came home just energized like I've never seen before. So I had to find out what was going on, that these kids made such a transformation in a short period of time. And that's why I ended up getting involved with the youth. I started out in RILA, and I think this will be my 16th or 17th year in a row with them. And Youth Exchange, I think I started about 2005, and it's very rewarding. So anyway, that's a little bit about me and how I got into Rotary and involved with our youth programs.
Okay. Now I'm gonna unmute Paul and let Paul go ahead and or I can't unmute him. There we go. And let Paul go ahead and say what he needed to say, and then we'll hear your talk, Steve.
Okay. So thank you very much. What triggered my desire to say a couple of words was when I saw the notification of tonight's presentation. I'm in District 7090, which is the district just to the east of 6380. We're Southern Ontario and Western New York. And I've been active in the district for a long time. For several years, I was public image director. Right now, I'm in District 6380 officially because of my membership in this club. But I'm teaching an MBA capstone course at Canisius College, a small Jesuit college in Buffalo. And the college likes the students to do a project that is service related. So what I wanted to say, and I'll ask for an opportunity to say more about it at a later meeting, is that I've got 27 mostly professionals, VP level and higher, in banks and local manufacturing companies working on 2 versions of a 3-year growth plan for Rotaract in Rotary District 7090 and sustainability for Rotaract. And that is their project for their MBA project for the semester. It's a strategic plan. They will be presenting it to district leadership, the incoming district governor and others on April 29th. And the district will go through the 2 plans and decide what to do with them, or whether to look at one or the other, or to merge the 2. So I just wanted to let my fellow club members know that we are actually doing a project, working with Rotaract clubs, working with district leadership, to try to develop a program to grow Rotaract substantially in this district and make sure it's sustainable. That's it.
Okay. Well, Steve.
Hey, Brian?
Yes, sir.
Are you recording?
Yes, I sure am.
Thanks.
Hey, Jerry.
Cheers, John. Really appreciate the glass.
Well, Steve, I'm going to leave it up to you to kind of decide what we kind of need to hear, because in the context of our club, obviously we're interested in youth, but we're spread out all over the place. So why don't you tell us what you think we want to hear?
Well, you certainly have an interesting dynamic when you are scattered about, but you're all affiliated with the same organization, and that being Rotary International. So I think regardless of where you are, there's still opportunities for you to be involved in your own independent districts, or have a big project district with, involving multiple districts, and kind of go from there. But to kind of give a short history about youth, youth services was established by Rotary International, I believe, back in 2011, and it was dubbed the New Generation Program, which was quite confusing because there were other Rotary programs that had the same naming convention. So I think it took about 2 years to get that straightened out, and the title that was given to the youth programs, plural, was Youth Services. And youth services then became one of the 5 pillars within Rotary. And I guess it made it to that level, in my opinion, because Rotary felt that our youth programs were just as critical and important as membership and the foundation and all these other entities that make up the pillars. And I was really pleased to see that, because I truly believe that what we do with our kids is critical in what our future is going to be like. And when they say that kids are seeds for the future, that's something that I believe in. So for our district, if you want to find out more about all of the youth programs under Youth Services, there are 2 avenues that you can gain this information from. The first is the website that was put together for Youth Services. The URL is 6380youth.org, and it is just the youth programs that we have here in our district. And then if you go on to our district website, which is rotary6380.org, at the top of the front page, there's a identification tab called District Information. And if you go into District Information, you'll see Youth Services as one of the menu selects. And going into Youth Services, then you can get a little more information on Rotaract, Interact, RILA, and Youth Exchange. So hopefully that will provide you some information that you may or may not already have. Our structure for our organization starts with the clubs. Everything that Rotary does, regardless, is sponsored by a Rotary club someplace, somehow. And supporting the Rotary clubs, of course, then is our district. And our district is pretty congenial as far as what youth programs need and want to do. We've gotten a lot of good support in the past, and would expect the same in the future. And but our district, small, just like any other district, with numbers that we're always trying to grow, is a member of a multi-district, which is made up of 13 districts, one in Michigan and Ontario, several districts in Ohio, West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and more recently, Florida. And so we've got 13 districts now that make up this multi-district. The multi-district is a great facility for our youth exchange program, in as much as the interaction with countries and personalities that have kids on their side to organize the flow of students back and forth is made a whole lot easier when you have people that look at country specific. And so we have a great organization of people. I think there's 8 that handle upwards of about 32 different countries that our students exchange with. And if we had to do that just within our own district, it would be difficult. So so that is a really great group of people that are involved in the multi-district, and that name is Ohio Erie Rotary Youth Exchange Program. And then going a little bit further yet, we have presence in international configuration. I think there might be about 7 or 8 regional youth exchange organizations scattered around the world, and the one that we are affiliated with is called NAYN, which is the North American Youth Exchange Network. And the basic membership is constitutes all of the districts in Mexico, United States, and Canada. So there are quite a few districts there. So anyhow, we also, through the NAYN organization, have a direct connect then to Rotary International when it comes to putting together the pre-conference for youth exchange that happens every year about 3 days before the international convention starts. And then we have opportunity to put stuff through into the council legislation specifically dealing with youth-related things. So I think our organizational structure within Rotary is very sound, and it works, and it's never caused any major issues for student or leadership. So all that being said, then youth services then is kind of the overall umbrella for the 4 major youth programs: Rotaract, Interact, RYLA, and Youth Exchange. And within our district, we have a chairman for youth services that is on the executive council for the district, and then it filters then down into the chairman for each one of those 4 programs. For RYLA, RYLA is an acronym for Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. Been around for a long time. It was initiated, I think, in Australia, and can't remember the date that happened, but it became very, very popular as time has gone by as a very good, solid program for building leadership, understanding, and I guess characteristics. So we have a 2.5-day program every year in the springtime that focuses on helping students really identify who they are, and then once they have this understanding, then they can start looking at themselves more specifically as a leader. And some are very hesitant to be this leader because they feel more comfort in being a follower and a supporter. But we don't cut them any slack. Everybody that comes to the program is a leader at some point in time during the program. And then we've built in a lot of problem-solving techniques so that as the students in their leadership role run into problems, they at least have some sort of an idea of how to go about trying to find solutions for that problem. So this is a club-sponsored program, and it costs the club then about $325 US for per student to send the student under a full scholarship, if you will, to the program, which is 2 nights, all the food and fun you want to have, plus the program itself. So it's, I think, a very competitive program with everything else that a lot of the high schools are involved with throughout their own states. So the RILA program is pretty much fed by the Interact participants, and then also the current inbound youth exchange students also participate in this. So it's not only learning a little bit about leadership, but it's a real opportunity for the mixer to blend together personalities and cultures worldwide, all in the same program. Interact is also a club-sponsored program. Clubs are basically given leadership from the Rotary Club, and most of the clubs that we have here are called school-based clubs, which then require a school official, a counselor, or somebody to work with the kids because they hold their meetings and stuff on school property. There's also community-based programs, which my club started several years ago, and it actually had membership from, I think, 6 different high schools. And it was interesting to see that the normal rivalry between schools kind of disappeared when they got together for Interact. So anyway, doesn't cost your club any money, and let's say you want to help fund them a little bit. But certainly, if you wanted to establish an Interact club, it needs to have a Rotary Club as its sponsor. And then the whole Interact organization, like Rotaract does, follows very similar to what you see in your own Rotary clubs, where you have monthly reporting to Rotary International, dues and things of that nature. So they are tasked with the same thing that each Rotary club's tasked with, which includes community projects and hopefully international projects also. So they're just a younger version of who we are in our Rotary clubs. I guess then following the progression a student would have when they leave high school and go into the university setting is the Rotaract program. And it operates the same way that Interact operates. It's sponsored by a Rotary Club, and they'll have a communication conduit between a youth leadership person in your club as well as the one in the Rotaract Club. And most of what I've seen in the United States are university-based programs. Europe had started many years ago with Rotaract as a community-based program, and it's fantastic to see young adults from the age of 20 to 35, stop on the way home from work and go to a meeting with their Rotaract friends and work on community projects, problems, interacting between themselves as to the challenges of careers and that type of stuff, balancing maybe a marriage and children in that mix. And so it's a very dynamic opportunity for this age group of young adults to get together and to solve the world's problems. We have 3 Rotaract clubs in our district, one at University of Michigan, one at Oakland University, and the third just starting out is at Eastern Michigan University. And it's amazing, these students, they might have a membership of 100, for instance, but only 25% of them are ever together at one time, because students, they go on sabbatical, they they do internships and all this kind of stuff, but they always have a central location, I guess, when they come back home to be involved with a group. And I know that University of Michigan several years ago had students that did some projects on some water and some sanitation type issues, and you know, I guess general nature conservation and that kind of stuff. These kids, they go out and they do all kinds of things, and I wish I had half the energy that they have in order to participate with them. So those three programs, I've been involved in all three of them as far as organizing and getting things started. And it's challenging with this age group because if you're not tied into all the social media and higher level electronic communication protocols, you're going to be kind of left out in the breeze. But I stay involved with these kids because I see they have characteristics. They know how to solve problems, and I wish that our country, I wish our world could take the example on how they solve problems. And I don't think we'd have near the issues we have today. I see how they can multitask. I've never seen an individual handle so much at one time. And when you see chit chat going back and forth on 3 different social channels all at the same time, and they're also involved in a meeting, you wonder how they can do those kinds of things. But they do, and they're very efficient at it, and can serve certainly as a great source of energy, fun, and some skills that maybe some of us older folks have difficult times in trying to learn. So they're just a wonderful group of people. Lastly, I guess I'll talk about Youth Exchange, and this probably is something that I'm most involved in since I was a governor. And I said at the middle of the first year involved in Youth Exchange that give me the opportunity to be governor any day. It's a whole lot easier than working in Youth Exchange. And I currently serve as the district chair. So I'm involved with our inbound students, our outbound students, our road tech students, our short-term students, all of them, both the kids that are leaving and heading out of our district, as well as the ones coming into our district. The program, again, has got to be sponsored by a Rotary Club. And in our club, or in our district, sorry, we have a contract that we like clubs to read, understand, and sign. Excuse me. And basically, because Rotary Youth Exchange is truly an exchange, which is one going in and one going out, that if a club would like to sponsor a student to be an outbound student, they must also take on the responsibility of bringing a student back and providing the host family that's needed for that student to be here on an exchange. So a club can send a student out. It doesn't cost the club any money to do this. They must have a, call it a YEO, Youth Exchange Officer, that works with the student as they're going through the application process, and then is a point of contact back to the club when the student is abroad for a year. And it really makes a meeting spark and come to life when monthly reports come back from the student indicating the things that they've done, the challenges they had, how they solved it, and the friends they're making and these types of things. And it's like being a parent, I guess. Your kids grow up and they take off, and when they do things and you notice that, it just makes you feel proud. So that's how I feel when I get a group of kids that are wanting to go out on an annual basis. In order to cover costs of students coming into the program as inbound students, there is a $400 per single charge per student annually, which covers the training and the associations that we have with Ohio Erie and that type of thing. And then the student gets a stipend of about $100 a month while they're in school here. So it's cost of about $1,500 US for a club then to sponsor an inbound student. The program itself is dynamic. I work with the Department of State on students coming in here with their visas and those kinds of things. And Rotary in the United States is the #1 as far as numbers are concerned in youth exchange under the J1 visa program, and which is pretty cool. And so when you talk about a country that has roughly about 85 different sponsors of different visa structures, having kids coming and going all the time, and Rotary is at the top of the list, that's pretty cool. And with Rotary being on both ends of the exchange, we can feel very confident in knowing that whatever problems arise, it's caught early, and the relationships that our Rotary district has here with the Rotary district somewhere in Timbuktu, where a student is located, it's the same as, we're all one big family, and it works very, very well. I know there's a lot of other organizations that envy us because of this relationship. The short-term program kind of goes hand in hand with the outbound program, except that it's only a 2-month summer program, family to family. Excuse me. And the cost for a student, and again, it's not a cost to the club. The student pays about $750 for their registration fees to cover everything that happens between the time they apply and the time that they leave, which is training, their blazers, and those types of things that really like puts the icing on the cake, if you will. We're finding in our district now that the number of short-term students is increasing, and it's approaching about the same number of long-term outbound students that we send out, which runs anywhere from about 12 to 20 each year. The last part of the youth exchange program is called Rotex, and Rotex in the world now is really starting to get some foothold in the organizational structure within Rotary International. And Rotex is made up 100% of former youth exchange people, regardless of age. And they do an awful lot of the same thing all the other programs are involved with, from community service all the way up to international projects. They would be a good organization to look at because they're typically organized very similar to the way your club is organized, with people scattered in multiple states. So anyhow, that along with Rotaract are something that really works really well. And so I guess all in all, that is the youth programs in our district here. And the only thing that I can say is that if you are not involved in one way or another with any one of these programs, then as a club, I think you're really missing out on a lot of good stuff. We complain that we don't have enough members. Well, what better place to find members is through the kids and their families. And I think about a year ago, there was a comment made in our finance group here in 6380 in that, well, we're investing an awful lot of money in our youth programs. What are we getting out of it as far as membership? And lo and behold, there is a little bit of correlation, even though it's not the responsibility of the youth program to generate members. But we have an awful lot of families that have sent their students out on exchange, for instance, and thought it was such a noble thing that was being done. They wanted to be a part of it. So we have a number of members scattered across our district that are recent members simply because their kids were involved in youth exchange. And if you want to stimulate the atmosphere in your own club, have a bunch of kids join in with you. They're a hoot, and that the energy they bring, the unpolluted environment that their minds are in at that point in time is just so refreshing that you're missing out a lot if they're not involved. So, needless to say, you're listening to a guy that's pretty passionate about the youth programs in a whole, and wouldn't give it up for anything. I think my life has been turned around. My wife says, geez, why are you doing this kind of stuff now and you didn't when you had your own kids this age? And I don't know, but I sure am glad that I finally figured out what the value proposition is here. And I think somebody asked me a few years ago when I was addressing our district conference as to, why do you say it's so valuable? Why are these kids things that we ought to incorporate in all this? And I tried desperately to put together the definition of the value proposition unsuccessfully. And the only thing I could tell them was, I can only guarantee you one thing, and that is, if you get involved, you will know the value proposition. And, you will not be disappointed. So regardless if it's Interact, Rotaract, RILA, or Youth Exchange, they all bring this fantastic energy and fresh philosophy on life to the table. And we're missing out if we don't include them. So that's about the extent of what I have to say on the youth program this evening. Any questions?
I got a couple. Steve, it's Jerry Jackson.
Okay.
It's Jerry Jackson.
Oh, Jerry. Yeah.
Actually, we have a chat then that goes back and forth all the way along here, and I just pointed out that the short-term program was something that I had the privilege of starting for our district many moons ago. I think I last chaired that program 14 or 15 years ago. Anyway, but it's great to hear that it's going strong. And I would just got thought here and sent that out as a message that that may be something that we could participate in, sending somebody out and then hosting them back here, because it's a family-to-family exchange. That if one of us sees that, we could make that happen. That was just a statement. But my question, though, is going back to Rotaract. I would also think that's something that might be really useful or something easy for our club to do and get involved with in terms of starting an online Rotaract club for motorcyclists. And so, do you know what the cost is of doing something like that?
Well, I don't believe, let me think here, to set up a program, it would be the same as any other Rotary club program, and you just fill out the paperwork for RI and send it in. I don't think there's any application fees or anything.
I thought there was like a $5 fee, but that's next to nothing.
Well, it's minimal.
$5 per person. But my understanding is they don't pay any dues or any insurance. All that's covered under us, right?
The Rotaract they would be connected through the sponsorship that they have with your Rotary Club.
The clubs in our area are, some of them charge dues and some don't. And those that charge dues, it's $5 or $10 a year or something. It's very, very low.
Yeah, I think we would want to have them charge something to, for the commitment, but nothing at all that's major at all. And I would think that we could let them use our website, and we just create a new category of membership there for that, and we could let them use our Zoom account, and their cost of operating would be like next to nothing. Does that make sense?
I know that Rotary International is to set up a formal club environment. We're having some difficulties trying to figure that out, because it was be in the best interest of Rotary in general if a club was defined as a group of alumni, and as opposed to just a group of people. So I think if you make contact with RI, they will ask you, what kind of a club will this be? One that just kind of operates haphazardly on their own, or one that's going to be a little bit more organized under RI, kind of from like an alumni organization, which then has benefits of sorts back through RI. So my suggestion would be to follow the alumni path for setting up the program, and again, cost-wise, there really isn't any.
Jerry, how would you go about recruiting people in, I think it's 18 to 35 year range, who are motorcyclists?
Well, we've got a couple that we've had some touches with, and in fact, John sent me a message here a little bit ago about the young lady that's a med student. There's a couple that have interest, and we are quite a bit different in age to a lot of these people that have interest. But I would try and go after her. I can't think of his name up there in Canada that's ridden with us a number of times now. The young man, he's 19 years old. Kenton. No, not Kenton. That's his dad. Quinn and his sister, I can't think of her name. They're both motorcyclists, and they're like 19, 20 years old. I just think that when we ride and stuff like that, I don't know if there's a minimum size or not, but we can start them unofficially and see what we can do. I don't know. I think
if you want to charter under RI, there is a minimum number of members to charter, and it's 10 or 12 people, I think.
Well, we could certainly start it and grow it. I mean, that's my thoughts.
You could just make them a satellite club underneath our club, making all those members of our club participating in a young online Rotaract club. It's a satellite club.
Yeah, but the satellite club is actual Rotarians. So then they'd have to pay the RI dues and stuff.
Well, don't our Rotaract people pay RI dues of some sort?
No.
In fact, I've heard some presentations on this that, that's a way to expand your Rotary Club quickly without actually doing that early on when the young people don't have money. You can actually make them a member of a Rotaract club that operates totally within your club. I mean, they don't even have to meet set differently.
Well, like I indicated, the Rotaract organization is really growing globally. I think this past year they had their 5th annual international convention, and there were several hundred students around the world, well, Rotaractors, that attended, and I know that NAN, which is the North American Youth Exchange Program, has actually set aside one chair on the board that is occupied by a Rotaract individual. And I think they are starting Rotaract North America, I think is what they call themselves. So, you know, Rotaract in general is really picking up steam. And if there's anything that you ever want to know about it, you know, I can put you in contact with one or two people quickly, and you can learn all there is to know about Rotaract. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
I do. What are there any formal activities to try to get the Rotaractors in 6380 into Rotary clubs, either after they have aged out of Rotaract or while as they get a little bit older within the Rotaract group into the late 20s or early 30s?
Well, like I had indicated earlier, that the alumni, I guess, if you will, is what's Rotaract is trying to form itself underneath. And because of that, then there are a lot of former Rotary members that have fallen out of the scope of Rotary that might be interested in getting involved again with that. And you know, I know that District 6380 the last few years has put quite an emphasis on engaging Rotaract individuals because they're closest to being the next step members in Rotary, and then so, you know,
Steve, I don't think we've done a very good job with the Rotaractors from that point of view. But on the other hand,
well,
the vast majority of our district's experience has been with university-based Rotaract clubs, and you know that's been 4 years and out.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So.
I have a question. When and how do you age out of Rotary activity?
I beg your pardon?
I don't know.
I heard a comment about alumni organizations for people who had aged out of Rotary activity. And I wonder when and how that happens.
You might be conflating my comment about Rotaract. Technically, I think the age range for Rotaract is 18 to 35. And I'd asked about what efforts are ongoing in 6380.
Oh, I think I understand the question.
To get those students when they...
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, 6380 is not doing much of a job in that area because the 3 clubs that we have are university-based clubs. When the kids graduate, they disappear. But I think regardless of whether it's Rotaract, Interact, or whatever, I think the downfall of Rotarians has been that they are not being involved with the student at any point in time. They may help them get started and form their own club, and then that's it. And so when I commented earlier that the best way I can see for membership in general, which I think is the question you're asking, is to get these students, regardless of what program that they're in, get them involved with your club. And that involvement builds relationships. And that is what I believe causes membership to happen. If you don't stay in contact with them and at the end of the university they head off to wherever, you've lost them. And so it's imperative, I think, that forming good relationships with the students for which you're sponsoring is the answer to a lot of our problems. So,
Agree.
so yes, 6380 has not done a good job in that area, and I would speculate that part of the reason is that dealing with these students and how liquid they are, it takes a lot of time and effort to just keep your directory up to date as to where they're at, and let alone remembering to get them involved in a project that you're working on or an event you're going to host. So if you want members, then you're going to have to nurture them right on through and stay in touch with them. And then when they reach that age, that they age out, so to speak, well, provide them the opportunity for the next step. It won't happen automatically.
I've got a comment. My club here in 7750 in South Carolina is chartering a Rotaract club later this month. I think it's on the 24th of April. And this is being formed because one of our members is on the faculty at the local college. And I think we would be in a good position to experiment with what you're talking about and, involve them more, have more interaction between the Rotaract Club and our Rotary Club. And so I'll try to do what I can to facilitate that, and I'll feed back to you guys how all that works.
Well, I had a smart man tell me one time in working with young adults and, high school students, that type of thing, that they're not looking to get involved busting tables, doing the grunt work at an event and those kinds of things. They'll do it, but only if they are involved with all of the other parts and pieces of putting the project together, the administration, taking a leadership role someplace within your group that makes things happen. And if you can facilitate that for your young adults to come in and work with you in your club, then you're more apt, in my mind, to be confident that if they're going to stay in the area, then you're not going to lose them. And so, again, relationships are everything. And if you don't have them, you're lost them, and all the effort that went into supporting them at any given time kind of goes down the drain.
Steve, I have a question about that Rotex program. Could you expand on that a little bit and tell me how you spell it?
Rotex, R-O-T-E-X. And let me think here.
Is that international?
Rotex is, yes. And a lot of the younger Rotex, probably students that have returned from an exchange opportunity within 10 to 15 years after having gone out, are typically very active in supporting the youth exchange programs that continue on in the district that sponsored them. And if you don't go to them looking for something, they will find something themselves, and it's not necessarily guaranteed they're going to find you. But they're looking to be involved with other youth or other young adults, depending on what it's all about there. And they have this passion of wanting to give back to the world. They have this notion that one person at a time can actually bring peace to the world. It's a great thought. I'm not sure it will ever happen, but if you don't try, it never will. And so these kids are, they are wanting to be very involved. And if you don't give them the opportunity, they're going to find it somehow, somewhere. And so I guess the one thing that I could provide is some contact information for a couple Rotex individuals that are serving at the international level, right, Rotex North America. And these individuals are professionals in whatever line of work that they're doing, so they're in their mid to upper 20s for the most part, and I feel very confident that they would be able to provide you guidance, ideas, whatever you think that you need to not only start a Rotex organization, but to build it and it provide value for you.
Well, I'm only interested in advising some of my former exchange students that an organization like that exists, because some of them had impulses about starting something like that when they went back to their home countries.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I will get you. I'll get you a couple names that you can follow up with. And like I said, these individuals have been involved frantically because nobody else was giving them an opportunity, so they made their own way, so to speak. So I'll get contact information available for you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, if you Google Rotex, you get Rotex Industrial Separation and Sifting Equipment.
Well, go into Rotary International and then Google something in there. I think if you Google Rotex Rotary, you might have different response.
I see one district level one. I'll look into that. I want to see if that's being considered in my district, 7090. It's a really good idea. And it seems to me there's an overlap where you could get this sort of intermingling of Rotex and Rotaract. And depending on what the goals and objectives are of the individuals, you could even spin off some Rotaract clubs from the Rotex clubs.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. So,
I'll mention that Birmingham, Alabama. Have you heard of that, Steve? The Rotaract Club there?
not specifically, no.
You might want to look into it. My students are looking at it. It was mentioned by the Rotaract representative from our district when he came to talk with them. Apparently it's well over 100 members, and it's a non-university based and very well funded. From what I understand, a lot of the community leaders in Birmingham are members of that Rotaract club. So it seems to be a model of what could be if we could figure out how to get to that level.
Okay, well, keep in mind that Rotex is specifically a past youth exchange individual.
Right, I was speaking of Rotaract, My thought was
Rotaract, yes.
a Rotex member could also be a Rotaract member, not the other way around necessarily.
That's correct, yes. But I tell you, it's amazing the number of people that are former exchange kids from Rotary. And I've been in airports around the world where people have come up because I my name bag on my bags, you know, has this big round rotary wheel. And they said, you know, I know something about Rotary. And they said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm involved in youth exchange. And, you know, twice in the same airport, two different people out of the clear blue heard a conversation going. Both of them had been exchange students in the past. Neither one of them had joined a Rotary club. And when I asked why, well, they said, we didn't know where to go to find this information. And so that was easy. I gave them the information, and I said, I feel very much assured that you'll probably find the club fairly close to wherever you live. And great opportunities for passing along the Rotary International goodwill. Anyhow, anything else? Looks like
I'll
we've
just
almost
mention
been
that I'm
on-
alerting our incoming district governor, our membership chair, and our youth exchange chair for Rotary District 709 about Rotex. I've never heard it discussed here, so by the time this meeting ends, I'll have an email off to them pointing them at that website that Brian Green just shared with us. So thank you.
Okay. Well, certainly feel free to contact me anytime. I'm more than willing to help put things together and pass along information wherever I can. And I don't have a motorcycle anymore, but I still love to be with Rotarians. So
motorcycle isn't a requirement, Steve. We're happy to have you anytime. Can you give us
all right.
Can you give us an email address that I can post up for everybody?
Yes, it's D as in dog, O as in Oscar, C as in Charlie. My last name, Y as in Yankee, Oscar, Uniform, Tango, Zulu. So docyutz@msn.com.
Okay. That's perfect. That's posted in the chat for anybody who wants to get a hold of it. And thanks so much for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity too, and I'm glad that there's some little bit of stuff that I've done in my life that people are interested in. So,
if anybody loses that email address, I've got a good contact for Steve all the time too.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
I've
Thank
got a
you.
little experience to share with everybody. I was on a Viking cruise week before last, and I saw a comment on Facebook about somebody having dinner in a certain restaurant, which was the name of the restaurant on the cruise. So I messaged the guy and said, you know, where are you? Are you on this ship? He said, no, I'm in Australia. And it was Robert W. Gracie, a member of this club.
He's not a member of the club. He's a former member of IFMR. He was a group leader. He's out of West Virginia. And he was the group leader on the very first IFMR ride I was ever on. Really cool guy. He drives a slingshot now, and he shows up on our rides once in a while.
Yeah, he was, it was interesting because, you know, that ship was up at watching the Aurora Borealis that got in trouble. He was in Australia and I was in the Western Mediterranean, and we were talking about eating dinner that night in the same restaurant because all those ships have the same names for everything. I want to get in one other thing. I understand y'all are having a very dynamic speaker next week, and I don't want to miss it.
I heard he was just a lot of trouble.
Could be.
Y'all know Mike's speaking next week, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I've been in Rotary 37 years, and this is nobody's ever asked me to do this before, and I've seen a lot of people do it. And when she asked for volunteers, I jumped on the bandwagon, but I think I was last in line, so I had to wait a couple months to get to do it. But
She got us.
I'll be ready for you next week.
Linda's got us programmed out for speakers quite a long ways between her and Jim Domead.
Yeah, she does a good job.
Yeah. Hey, 37 years, you've not spoke yet?
Not in one of those deals where you tell about what you've done. I've spoken on various subjects, but not about myself.
That might be a long meeting if it's going to be pent up like that.
Hey, you'll have to stop me. I got enough stuff that
I might have to put more in this glass.
Well, that's kind of like me. We'd have to have a 3-hour meeting to fit all my bullshit in. With that, let me close with the 4-way test. So unmute yourselves and come join me.
All right, I'm going to unmute everybody here.
I'm unmuted.
Of the things we think, say, or do. 1.
is it
Is
the truth.
2. Is it bitter?
We're all concerned.
3.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
4.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And our personal 5.
Will it be fun?
Does it hurt?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Have a good week. See you next week.
Thanks again.
Okay.
See you next week. Thanks a lot,
Bye-bye.
Steve. All right, recording is stopped.
Good night.